Hi everybody. Hello. Hi Sebastian, how are you? Hope you're well. Hi Quentin, how are you? Hope you are good. Hi Alam. Thanks for joining today. Thanks everybody for coming. Feel free to say hello to everybody in the chat. Hi Felix, hope you're good. Thank you all so much for joining today. So let's get into today's topic. So as you can see from the title, today we are going to learn about Anglophone culture. So in this series, we have covered many topics, some related to grammar, some related to phrases, some related to ways you can sound more natural in English. But we cannot forget to talk about Anglophone culture when we speak about the language. So of course, when you learn language, it goes hand in hand that you also learn about the culture as well. So today's lesson, we're going to be talking a little bit about various aspects of different Anglophone cultures. So obviously English is spoken in a few countries, so we are going to talk about a few different cultures. So usually when we learn English, we usually talk about American English and British English. But when we think of the cultures, there are many other cultures, of course. So can you guys think of some other English-speaking countries? So as I just mentioned, we have the United States of America, the USA, and then we also have the United Kingdom. So it would be great if you could just type some other countries where they speak English, because we don't want to exclude them. So great. So Sebastian, you've said Australia. Yes, exactly. So there are 20 million people in Australia, so they all speak English. So yes. So Alam, you said the UAE and India. So in the UAE, there is a big foreign population, so they speak English. And in India, they speak many languages. So often the language for education is English, or when they want to speak to people from different regions. Yes, Australia again. Nigeria, exactly, yes. Again, Nigeria is similar to India. They speak many languages, but it's the language that they use to communicate with each other, often in education or at work, for example. South Africa, yes. Diamala, the Philippines, it is widely spoken in the Philippines. They do have their own language as well. But yes, it's very widely used as well. So I can give you a few other examples. So we don't forget about Australia's little brother on the side. So also we have New Zealand. Don't forget above the USA, we also have Canada as well. And next to the UK, don't forget about Ireland. So, France, yes. Some people in France speak English. It depends how close they are to the UK. Hi, Evelyn. Hope you're well. Okay. So my first question I have for you. Do you guys know how many states there are in the USA? So I will give you a clue. It has to do with the number of stars on the flag. So that could help you potentially. So anybody else? So Sebastian says 51 states. Does anybody have a different answer? 63 states. Okay. Anybody else want to guess? So any others? So I think I'll give you guys the answer for this one. So it depends who you are asking. So normally people talk about, Evelyn, you came in with the answer. Great. Normally we say 50 states, but if you count DC, so this is District of Columbia, where Washington, the capital is, and Puerto Rico are not usually counted. So it usually depends. So, but usually people tend to say that there are 50 states in the US. Okay, great. So now we're going to talk a little bit about kind of stereotypes you have about the US, the UK, and other Anglophone countries. So I would like you to write the culture, so if it's the US or the UK or Australia, and I would like you to write maybe a word, like an adjective, or a phrase. What is your stereotype of people from this culture? So I will start. So maybe when you think of a person from the UK, you think of a British gentleman. So there is sometimes the stereotype that people from the UK are polite. Maybe your personal experience is different, but this is often a stereotype. So does anybody else have any stereotypes that they have heard about different Anglophone cultures? Okay, so Diamala, so arrogant for the USA, okay. Quentin, dangerous. Okay, I'm not sure which culture you're talking about there. So does anybody have any positive stereotypes about some of these people? Sebastian, Americans eat fast food every day. Laugh out loud. Yes. Felix thinks that Americans are very funny. I think you're talking about Americans. Maybe you're talking about British people. I'm not sure. So, yes. Does anybody have any stereotypes about people from other Anglophone countries? Quentin, you're saying that my game is dangerous. Yes, I understand it is dangerous. Yes. And Felix, you said that the British are funny. Yes, thank you. Yes, so I will share with you some stereotypes that we tend to have about these people, and maybe I can give you some adjectives that you could use or that you could talk about as well. Just to go through the US first, people often say that people from the US are very smiley, that they are very friendly, so they are warm, they will talk to you, make conversation. Sometimes people find this superficial and say that it's a little bit fake. And they also, there is also the stereotype of being more conservative, maybe quite Christian, or being kind of religious as well. So this is a kind of stereotype that you might have of people from the USA, or patriotic, for example. Or Marie-Hélène has said that they're also kind as well. Okay, so let's move on to the UK. So Evelyn has said that the UK ancient style mixed with very modern way of life, so it gives a very specific country. Fine English people are very fair play. Do you mean that they are nice? I'm not sure what you mean there. Here are some stereotypes you might have about the UK. Obviously, France and the UK in close proximity to each other, friends and enemies at the same time. Okay, so they play fairly. Okay, so in the UK, people might be perceived as snobby, so maybe a little bit arrogant sometimes. Bad food. Most French people say that English people have the food is very bad in the UK. Maybe you will all agree with this. And that we are always drinking tea. So this is another stereotype of British people. I think the last one is definitely true though. So in most cultures, people offer you a coffee, but in the UK, people will always offer you a cup of tea if you go to their house. So I can tell you that is actually true. So another one. So let's talk about Ireland next to the UK. So again, Ireland. So people are perceived as being friendly. They love to drink. So it's the place where Guinness comes from. So if you're familiar with this pint of beer, this kind of black pint of beer. And the word ginger. So in English, in British English, we use the word ginger to describe somebody with red hair. So often when you think of somebody with red hair, you think about somebody from Ireland or from Scotland. But obviously, it's a bit of a stereotype, but it's true that most people who are ginger are usually from these parts. So the next country, so let's talk about, yes, so Rosanna, Ireland, you also have St. Patrick. That's another stereotype. And obviously we associate this holiday with drinking. Okay, so a stereotype of Canadians is that they are polite and that they are more liberal than their neighbour. So that's usually what people say about Canadians. So I don't know if any of you have been to Australia. Oh yes, open-minded as well, definitely, yes. So I don't know if any of you have been to Australia before or spoken to an Australian speaker before. But sometimes people say that they are hard to understand. So it's difficult to understand their version of English. And of course, the stereotype is that there are lots of wild animals in this country, which is true. And finally, the final country to talk about, one of the main English-speaking countries, shall we say, is New Zealand. And often in English, we just use the abbreviation NZ. And it's thought of as Australia's little brother, often in the shadow of Australia. So, Rosanna, yes, going back to Canada, they do have a funny way of speaking French. But when they speak English, it's very similar to American English. So their English is quite understandable. Great, thank you for that, everybody. So just to go back to a couple of things that you said before. So, Diamala, you spoke about Filipinos. Filipino workers are very hardworking. Yes, I agree. They definitely are. And Sebastian, you also spoke about Irish people and they like beer a lot. Exactly, definitely. So yes, Sebastian, great. People from New Zealand play rugby a lot. Yes. Generally, in Anglophone culture, rugby is popular. New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, the UK, it's a very popular sport. So if you find yourself around Anglophone culture or Anglophone people, excluding North Americans like Americans and Canadians, you could talk about rugby. That could be something interesting for the conversation. Great. So those are just a few stereotypes, just a few. Obviously, everything we say, it's a stereotype. It's not necessarily the truth. But that's kind of what people think of these people from these cultures. So I have a question for you all. So what does jump the queue mean? And is this a good or bad thing in Anglophone cultures? So first, do you understand what this phrase means? And second, is it a positive thing or is it a negative thing? So I'm curious to see what you all think about this. I'll wait to see what you guys type. So the first answer. So yes, it's negative. It's bad. Sade says it's positive. Sebastian thinks it's bad. So more of you are saying it's bad than good. So yes. It's not a false friend, Quentin. So what jump the queue means? It means that you are in a queue. It means you are in a line and you decide that you will go in front of other people so it is quicker for you. So it means when you don't wait like everybody. Exactly, perfect. That's exactly what jump the queue means. And I would say that it is a very big thing in Anglophone culture, especially in the UK. It is considered very rude. It is considered very impolite. And people will usually tell you what you did was wrong, or they will also tell the person who is in charge, like a manager, this person jumped the queue. So, of course, we all think it's impolite, I think in all cultures, but I would say that in the UK, it's much stronger than in other cultures because, like I said, people will talk to you and they will tell you off. So they will say, excuse me, I was here first. Because the idea is that if you arrive first, you should be served first as well. Like I said, very big thing in Anglophone culture, especially in the UK. So, okay, good guys. Okay, so my second question that I have for you. So in Anglophone culture, do you think it is taboo to talk about money? So, is it allowed to talk about money? Do people talk about their salary or the price of things that they bought? Is it something that people do, or is it something that people shy away from? Okay, so Alam says yes. Diamala says it's taboo. Evelyn says it's not polite. Sebastian said, it's a good question. In the UK, it's not taboo. Yes. So we're thinking about kind of most Anglophone cultures, because I would say most Anglophone cultures are similar. So Vivi says yes and no. So both answers, I would say. So I would say that it's probably on a spectrum. So when it comes to Americans, so Americans openly talk about their salary. So if you meet an American and they ask you how much you earn, so obviously here in France, if somebody asked you this question, it's a little bit of a weird subject. You probably don't want to tell people the exact number, the exact figure that you earn. But in America, people will openly talk about it. They will talk about they might talk about a raise at work. So when they receive more money, for example. So it's not taboo at all. It's actually quite the opposite. It's a little bit like a competition. I would say in British culture, it's a little bit less, but again, people are quite open about their salary. People will talk about how much they earn. It's not offensive to ask somebody their salary in British or American culture. Also, something else is that price comparison websites are quite popular in Anglophone societies. So I'm sure here in France they are also popular, but the idea is that you do not want to pay more. You want to get your money's worth. That's a very kind of very common thing in Anglophone culture. You do not want to waste money. And usually I would say that Anglophone cultures are usually rated as the most money-obsessed societies in the world. So if we think about things like capitalism, usually the US and the UK are quite are up there. Quentin, great question. How much do you earn, Vanessa? So I live in France. So in French culture, it's a little bit taboo to talk about it. So I'm going to go the French way with this question. And I'd say, yes, what I earn is fine. I live comfortably. So thanks for that question. How much do you earn, Quentin? Okay, great. So let's move on to the next question I have for you. Very important. So maybe some of you have Anglophone colleagues. Maybe not now due to COVID, but in the past, maybe you went to the UK, maybe you went to the US, or in the future you might. What is the best way to greet somebody new in an Anglophone country? So what is the most appropriate greeting that you should give them? Of course, you can give a variety of greetings, but which one would receive the best response, shall we say? So I'll give you a clue. It's not maybe the French way in some respects. So, any idea? So a bar, yes, saying hi, yes. So exactly, yes. I'm thinking more of a physical greeting. So what physical greeting would be most appropriate if you meet someone who is American or somebody who is British? So maybe you could give a kiss. Do you think this would be appropriate? Yes, you could smile, exactly. So, okay, maybe now that it's COVID times, maybe we will touch elbows these days. So, what I was thinking of, usually in business, is, or even when you meet a new person, even if it's a friend of a friend, you would give them a handshake. So to grab someone's hand sounds a little bit aggressive. So a handshake is what you do when you meet a new business partner, or when you meet somebody, maybe it's like I said, a friend of a friend, or somebody who is acquainted with somebody you know. So the handshake is the most appropriate. On the next level, I would say that if you are meeting with friends, Anglophone friends, it's also common to hug each other as well. So some people say that's quite close, it's very intimate, but it's very normal. So you kind of go from a handshake relationship, and then you become friends, and then you hug each other. So one thing I would avoid, especially depending on the Anglophone culture, but it's a little bit strange to give kisses on the cheek. You can see it from time to time, but it's not that common in the US, it's not that common in the UK, and it's seen as something a bit European. So I would avoid giving people a kiss on the cheek. Especially if you are like a male and female, sometimes it's a little bit, it can be a little bit strange to do that as well in Anglophone culture, because people don't like when other people are close to their faces. They think, oh, what are you doing here? So the safest thing to do is give a handshake. And if you become friends with someone, la bise is not common, a hug is more common. So hopefully you did not have any weird encounters with British or American colleagues or in the past with these. Okay, great. So we're going to have a little quiz round to finish off. So I would like to see who is going to be the fastest person to respond to the question. So let's see what you already know about Anglophone culture. So not just the UK and the US, we're talking about all Anglophone cultures, countries here. So my first question, and I think one of you already said it before, who is the patron saint of Ireland? So the fastest person to type. Let's see who gets it first. Ah, Sebastian, you're very quick. You have good internet, I think. So Evelyn as well, you're very close. And Rosanna, yes, you are the one who originally said it, I remember. So Saint Patrick, exactly. So Saint Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. This is the legend of Saint Patrick. And now we celebrate by drinking on St. Patrick's Day to celebrate the fact that there are no snakes in Ireland. Okay, great. So the next question I have for you, make sure that you guys are fast. So, sorry, not how many flags, how many stars, I do apologize. How many stars does the Australian flag have? Sade said 50, so it's the Australian flag this time, not the American flag. So that is the answer for the American flag. So does anybody know about Australia? So no problem, Sade, no problem. So if you picture the Australian flag in your head, it's a little bit different. So there are stars in different places on the flag, but there are not as many as 50. I hope none of you are Googling this answer or Googling the Australian flag and counting the stars. Okay, Sebastian says 6. Does anybody else have any other answers? 5. Diamala says 6. Any others? So now I have to double check as well how many there are. I have a feeling that some of you may have looked this up. Yes, Google says 6. Yes, yes, exactly. So yes, exactly. The flag does indeed have 6. So good for those of you who Googled it. So let's move on to another Anglophone culture. So we're going to talk about New Zealand. So New Zealand have a native people. What are the native New Zealand people called? What is their name? Try not to Google it this time. Oh, thank you for joining, Quentin. Thanks for your participation. Have a good evening. So, anybody else know what the native people from New Zealand are called? Have any of you been to New Zealand? Yes, Australia's brother. Yes, exactly. Australia's little brother, exactly. Yes. So, the native people from New Zealand are called the Maori people. For anybody who has watched rugby, yes, Rosanna, well done, great. For anybody who's watched rugby, you see there are a lot of Maori players. They are quite tanned, they have brown skin, and they have a lot of traditions in their culture. And their greeting is that they rub noses with each other. Instead of a handshake or a kiss or a hug, they rub noses. It's a very interesting culture. And yes, I recommend looking it up because it's interesting. So the next question, so related to Anglophone culture, where was this sandwich invented? So this is a word that has come into the French language. But yes, it is an English word. So where do you think the sandwich was invented? Which Anglophone place was it invented? I'll wait for your answers. So, Sebastian, yes. Yes, exactly. So, Sebastian says the UK, that is correct. So, Rosanna, yes, there are islands called the Sandwich Islands. They were not invented on the Sandwich Islands. Those are some islands in the middle of nowhere that were colonized by the UK, and they named it after Sandwich. So there is a place called Sandwich in the south of England, but actually it was invented by a lord. So yes, it's a British invention. Okay. So the final question I have for you, I want to see if you guys know the difference between British English and American English. So some distinctions between Anglophone culture. So in British English, the words courgette and aubergine are the same as in French. But do you know what the American equivalent of these words are? What do they say in the US for courgette? And what do they say in the US for aubergine? So let's see who's going to be the fastest here. And if you guys get it right. So courgette, aubergine. I'm British, so I would say courgette and aubergine. But if you go to the States, people will not understand you. So you need to use the American words. So Sebastian, first one, yes, eggplant, good. So eggplant is aubergine. So if you go to the States and you would like some aubergine, you should ask for eggplant instead. Good. And finally, does anyone know what courgette is? I'll give you a clue. It's Italian. So even though it's Anglophone culture. Okay. So if you go to the States, and yes, good Sebastian, so courgette in American English is zucchini. So Google helped you, great. Exactly. So just think about that if you go to the States to ask for those vegetables instead. Some food words are a little bit different in British English and American English. So great job, guys. Thank you so much for your participation today. I hope that you have learnt some new facts and that you've also learnt some new adjectives, and that if anybody asks you about Anglophone culture, that you have some new interesting facts to share with people and that you can also say them in English as well. So thank you all so much for your participation. So this is the end of our series. But we're going to be back next week with a new YouTube series, so please stay tuned. So we're keeping it a surprise, but we will be here next Tuesday. For anybody who has joined us, so I'm from an organization called Cercle and we run English lessons, and we have lots of YouTube videos and YouTube lives from the past, so feel free to watch previous YouTube videos and videos that are on our channel. So thank you very much, everybody. Hope you all have a lovely evening, and I hope to see you all again next week. Thank you. Bye bye.